Hey, what up everybody? This is Steve Breach coming to you here today with a video on Bryan. Earlier today when I got home, I was able to bust open my Barnes & Noble unboxing of the Bryan signed first edition hardback cover book. Daniel Bryan's been doing lots of press. I've been reading lots of articles on different dirt sheets, basically summarizing what was able to go down. I did listen to Daniel Bryan on Cheap Heat on the flight home from Florida today. I thought it was a very good interview, and during this interview, basically Daniel Bryan gives us a glimmer of hope that someday Daniel Bryan will be returning and wrestling again for WWE. Daniel Bryan said in the interview that a neurologist in Phoenix, one that was a head neurologist with the Phoenix Cardinals, he was there for the Super Bowl. He's a NFL doctor, as well as working with a lot of people there. I remember when Daniel Bryan was doing his comeback, and he was saying, what got him ready to come back from his last, neck and arm injury was, I believe, a doctor that was, I apologize if it's the wrong team, but for some reason, I believe he was flying to Pittsburgh. That was a doctor, might even have been in Denver. I think it was in Denver, because I remember him talking about the Denver Broncos. But he was talking about one of the football players. Was having a lot of injuries, and this doctor was able to get him to be able to get back onto the football field. And Daniel Bryan looked at this as if it was one of his last hopes to come back. Everybody can remember the neck injury that happened after WrestleMania 30, which was a long time coming for Daniel Bryan. He was having lots of trouble after the injury. They didn't know what was wrong with him, if he was have to go in and have Tommy John surgery, because he was not having any strength in one of his arms when he was on his rehabilitation tour trying to get his body back up to wrestling. But once Daniel Bryan came back, he wrestled at WrestleMania 31, winning the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, and then from there he went into a series of matches with Sheamus, where Sheamus made his return at Monday Night Raw, kicked him in the face with a big bro kick when him making his return, then having a match, I believe it was in Bakersfield, with Sheamus on SmackDown, and during there just having a bad match, coming out with people saying that he might have had a concussion. But Daniel Bryan went on the tour to the UK, and when he was there, basically being shut down by WWE doctors, he was flown home. They made a big deal out of it, but WWE would never announce what the injury was. People really didn't even know if it was another neck or arm injury. People were thinking concussions because the concussion story was out there, but WWE, a lot with the class action lawsuits that are going on with the football players in the NFL. Now, we have past wrestlers jumping on board, and they're filing lawsuits against WWE. WWE is trying to keep their lips real quiet about any kind of injury that is going down, but Bret Hart had a slip of the tongue during an interview where he talked about Daniel Bryan having the same injury problems that ended his career when Bret Hart made the guess that Daniel Bryan was never going to wrestle ever again. Sort of letting us know that at least Bret Hart either thought or Bret Hart knew of the concussion injury that ended his career. Maybe that was the same thing that Daniel Bryan was going through. But with Daniel Bryan saying that, one neurologist has been able to clear him and he's just waiting for WWE to clear him, at least it is a glimmer of hope that, Daniel Bryan will not go down with the book tour and with Tough Enough as that being the end of his wrestling career. I know that Daniel Bryan is the guy that, goes into interviews and he doesn't always say what WWE wants him to say. He just basically talks to the people like he is a real person. He doesn't like to call himself a sports entertainer. He will call himself a professional wrestler. He's never really dodged the questions of his injuries, even though WWE loves to keep them covered up. But Daniel Bryan is a really good wrestler. I know that basically he's telling his story in his book and on these interviews that, basically the magical moment that we all felt at WrestleMania 30 with him being put into the main event after beating Triple H in the opener was never the plans for WWE. Basically, they wanted to go with Batista and Randy Orton, and then that sort of fell apart with the fans not falling in love with Batista, and them trying to find a way to fix WrestleMania, and Daniel Bryan being the fan favorite was the one to go with, and Vince McMahon at the last minute made the go ahead that this is the guy that they're going to go with, and then his life just basically fell apart. You know, he goes out and he gets married the week of WrestleMania. He comes back. His dad dies, and then he has his injury, and then he's basically out for, off the top of my head, I guess 9 months, maybe 8 months before coming back at the Royal Rumble. But I don't know. I would really love to see Daniel Bryan again. And this story that comes out about him being able to pass the physical, even if it's not a WWE one, gives me hope that I might get to see him wrestle again. Last week, before I left to go on vacation, there was a story that came out that ended up being phony, as Daniel Bryan put it, of an Aberdeen, Washington radio interview that he was doing publicity for his book, basically saying that he was never going to wrestle again. It was time to, start paying attention to the current batch of superstars. He had his time was over, and basically that story ran for about 2 hours, basically Daniel Bryan saying that he was retired, and then after that, the story broke that it was phony and false, and that we could all move on with hope that Daniel Bryan would wrestle again. So that's what I'm hoping for. I want to see Daniel Bryan wrestle again. He's one of the best wrestlers there is in the world, and he's a fan favorite. So, you got to stick with those guys.